Welcome to another episode of Life Stories with Marty. I'm Marty here in Melbourne, and my special guest tonight is Clive Culbertson, musician, music producer, owner of No Sweat Studios in Coleraine in Northern Ireland. Now, this man is an amazing man. He played with Van Morrison, among other ones, and The Sweat. But what I want to do now is, if I was to read out his whole profile, all what he's done, the show would be over. So let's cross over to Northern Ireland, beautiful part, Coleraine, and we're going to have a chat with Clive. But before I do that, we're going to play a couple of songs, one at the end and one at the start here. And the first one is this a magnificent song. Now I'm going to play this for you. It's called Why Did You Have to Lie? Now, this is a recording by John Buckley McQuaid in 2007 in Tokyo. And I'm going to play this first. On the other side, we'll cross over and have a chat with Clive. Okay, let's click on that song and then we'll cross over. Okay.
Hi, Clive. Hi, Clive. Hi, Clive. Hi, Clive. さっきからずっとやってるの。
I was so in love with you, I couldn't see your form. You moved in really silently, and you took my world by storm. How was I to know the way you were inside? You were on the gravy train to take me for a ride. But tell me, why did you have to lie? Was it really worth the pain? And if you had it all to do, you'd do the same again. Took me quite a while to see you like to see me cry. But tell me, why'd you have to lie? I was just so sure you'd always be a part of me, but all you did was help destroy the love within my family. You hurt so many more than me, and lost me all my friends. I'm glad to say it's over now, because here the story ends. But tell me, why did you have to lie? Was it really worth the pain? If you had it all to do, you'd do the same again. Took me quite a while to see you like to see me cry. But tell me, why'd you have to lie? Was it really worth the pain? If you had it all to do, you'd do the same again. Took me quite a while to see you like to see me cry. But tell me, why'd you have to lie?
Clive, absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Joy to be with you, Marty. Great. It's very grey here. I hope it's better where you are.
I know I heard about the weather earlier, but it's not too bad here, but it's not. We're coming to the end. We'll be whinging about this hot weather probably next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You're in beautiful Northern Ireland, and tell us a little bit before we go into, we've just listened to your song there that you know, and I've spoken to you before that I love it, and we've just played the one with Sweat in Tokyo, and John Buckley McQuaid that put it together, our friend.
Brilliant.
It's an absolute brilliant song, as I said to you earlier. I'm just in love with it. So we just played that.
Thank you.
Why did you lie to me? Well, I'm going to send that to all my ex-wives and see what happens. You'll probably get me in trouble. Now, Clive, it's a pleasure to have you on. We're going to play your new song at the end of it. Please
Lovely.
don't say you love me. So don't say you love me. Please don't say you love me to me, because I'm not going to accept that. But that's a good for your song. So listen, Clive, we've had a chat and that, and you're just brilliant. We know we've heard you by. So I'm going to hand the mic over to you. Wouldn't be the first time you heard that. Tell us a story where you grew up and what progressed to where you are now.
Okay. Now.
Yeah.
We're going for it now. Yeah, okay. I was born in August 1954 in Ballymoney, just up the road from here. Spent my upbringing in Coleraine. Absolutely brilliant town when I was growing up in it. Interestingly enough, the town council in Coleraine were very forward thinking. In the estate that I lived in, they had Catholic one house, Protestant another, Catholic Protestant, and that was the whole way we grew up. Now that doesn't mean everybody's trying to do it now, but for that to be done in the mid-50s, it's incredible. And it was a great place to grow up. It was a great town to grow up in. And by the time I got to 12, the music bug had hooked me. My father was my biggest fan. He thought I was the greatest thing ever walked in the face of the earth. God bless him. And I miss him so much. And so we had a wee group, me, my brother Adrian, and a guy called John Doherty, he was the guitar player in a very famous band called the Extremists, another one of those 80s sort of punk bands that nearly got away in the 80s. And so my daddy, we were all about 12. My dad said, I've got friends of mine playing in a bar down the town. Do you want to come up and play? And we walked, great. So we walked down my daddy goes up to these guys. He knew them all, who were local living legends, by the way, and said, would you get my boys up for a song? And they went, oh, yeah, come up. Of course, the guys were just looking for a break to get off for a cup of tea and stuff. So we got up. My guitar player got up first. He got the guitar. My brother came up second. He got the keyboard. And the only instrument that was left was the bass, which I'd never played in my life. And Robin Miller, the bass player, Robin goes, you must be the bass player. But we only had 2 acoustic guitars and a wee organ. That's all we had. So he puts this thing on me. And I said, Robin, where's C? And he goes, 3rd fret, 3rd string. And he says, it's exactly the same as the bottom end of the guitar, just an octave lower. And I thought, oh, that's clever. So we played 3 or 4 songs, got loads of standing ovations. And that was me. I was hooked. I was completely hooked, not only in music, but on bass. And the next week, a friend of mine, Jackie Brown, who used to play in those days, Jackie was selling this top 20 bass. That's the big seller from Woolworths. And he said, here, you're taking up bass. He said, would you buy this thing? I said to my daddy, Daddy, come on. So my daddy gave me the £10, which is a lot of money in 1968 or something, and I went out and bought that, and I just couldn't stop playing it. So bass playing has been my career generally for most of it, It's been good to me. My mother was always against the music. She thought nothing important could come from it. Nothing good would come out of it. And so she put up every possible. Whenever I left school under a cloud, my mother sent me to do this job in an iron and brass foundry in Coleraine. I mean,
Yeah.
sweet mother of God. You know, I've got hair to here, and I'm a bass player. I've got fingers, and you're in lifting blocks of this and bits of that and pipes and uh, she stuck me in there for a wee while, and my daddy. But after I was there about 6 months, and I'd lost weight, and I was looking terrible, and I wasn't sleeping, so my daddy pulled me to one side, and he goes, "Son, what's wrong with you?" I said, "Daddy, I can't go down there every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning with all that bloody awful weather. All the doors are open. It's freezing. It's cold. It's filthy." I said, "I just want to do music." And he says, "Could you make any money of this music?" And I says, "Well, the wee show band that I'm playing with at the minute," I says, "I'm playing 2 nights a week with them. Do you make much money at that?" I said, "I'm getting £15 a night." He says, "What the hell are you doing down in the Iron and Brass Foundry?" And I says, "I can't argue with my mummy." And he says, "Look, don't worry about your mummy." He says, "I'll sort it out. Don't go back to that job." God bless me, daddy, you know, and that was it. So my mother didn't speak to either of us for about 3 months. In fairness, you know, God bless her. But she meant well. I mean, her idea was the old Presbyterian ethos, you know, you get a good education, you get a good job, you get married, you have kids, and then you die.
Yeah.
And that was her idea of a great life. Whereas really, so that was it.
And Clive, just go back a tiny bit there. You skipped
Yeah,
over it. Did you get kicked out of school, or what did you do?
I get kicked out of
I'm
school. I
just
mean,
curious.
yes, no, the biggest problem with the school was I was playing in my first show band when I was 13, and which meant that
Wow.
my picture was in the local paper every week. And so the girls from the local secondary school used to mob me on the way getting to school in the morning.
Oh,
Now, I mean, it wasn't millions of people, but, you know, 10, 15 people would come, "Oh, it's Clive Culbertson," and they would come over and get autographs and all the rest of it. And that was lovely. And so the school ended up, the vice principal pulled me in. He says, "You're bringing this school into disrepute. This is absolutely disgraceful." And I went, "Come on, really?" And then he had my number from then on, and he picked on me for the next couple of years. It was every time you turned, he was there waiting to grab you by the ear, you know, if you so it got to the last year I was there in Korean Academical Institution. It was certainly an institution, and I had hair. There were 30 people in my class who had hair longer than mine, and the only reason I know that is because our art teacher actually measured it one day when he saw me getting berated by the vice principal. And the vice principal came up one day to me, and he'd thrown me out of school 5 times that week to go and get another haircut. Now, I had no more hair left to cut, but it was just the principle of the thing. So he came up, uh, dragged me out of this line waiting to go into the art class. And he said, "Right, you, I told you to go and get your hair cut." I said, "Sir, I've been down 5 times in a fortnight. Come on, really?" And he went, "Go straight out of class now. Go down and get your hair cut." And I went, "No, I'm sort of finished with that. Sort of had enough." And he drew back his arm like this, you know, which he'd done quite a few times over the previous couple of years. And he
yeah.
went like that. And I looked at him and I just threw the school bag down. And I said, "You know what it is? You lay a hand on me ever again, I'll put you down those stairs." And he looked at me and he looked over his shoulder at the stairs and he knew I'd had enough. And he said, "Go to the vice principal. You're finished in the school." So I went down to after school to see the vice principal. They were all very smart, and they decided. The principal said to me, he says, "I had whenever I did the 11 plus thing here, they did this thing called random selection, and what it was to try and get a greater cross section of people going to a grammar school. They would take people who got a pass mark and put them in here, but they'd failed. So they would take 3 people who had 65, and one of them would get through and the other 2 would fail. And people who got 70, one of them went through and the other 2 got failed. So I was failed, and I went to the secondary school in Korean, which in those days was a good school. It was and I had
Yeah.
so much fun there. Great
Yeah.
teachers, great people. I absolutely loved it. But my mother cried for 3 days when I didn't get the 11 plus. So they sent me over there. When I was in the intermediate for a year, I'm sorry, I've got a cold today. I'm so
No,
sorry.
that's okay. You're
Um,
fine. You're all right.
so they called my parents and me in, Mr. Moore, gentleman, the principal, and he goes, "I tell you what it is. your son's too good to be at this school. We're going to give you a scholarship for him to go to the Korean Academical Institution. And of course, my mother was then up and, oh, wonderful, great, sign, where do we sign? Get him in. But it was a different school. And Mr. Moore said to my parents, he said, look, I have to warn you. He said, we've been doing this for about 30 years, sending boys from ours to the Inst. And he said, very few of our pupils make it past third year. They sit on them for the entire 3 years they're there. And I realized when I got there, of course, that's exactly what happened. The teachers picked on you, older boys picked on you, you're the stupo from the secondary and all that stuff. And it was awful. It was dreadful. I hated the school. You know what my dream was when I was younger? I was going to become a multimillionaire, buy the school and knock the whole thing down. That's how much I hated it. I really, really, really hated it. And so that was it. That was really why I did 3 years of Inst with that. And I was still doing music and it was wonderful. So the day that the vice principal, sorry, I digress. The principal said to me, he says, you're finished at this school. We've had enough of you. You're gone. And he said, you got a scholarship, a £3,000 scholarship to come here. So we're going to pursue your parents in court for the return of that scholarship money. So he said, you're not 16 yet. And I said, what I tell you, boss, I was 16 in August. The way my birthday fell, I was the oldest boy in my class every year, all the way through school. So I said, I was 16 in August. I says, I'll never be back in this shithole. I'm finished. And I walked out and I walked down to the middle of the town, right with my school bag over the river. And I just went weak and threw the bag into the river. You know, I'm not going back. And it was great. About 2 weeks later, they sent down the school gopher. Oh, Mrs. Culbertson, make this boy get his hair cut. Send him back here. He needs a bit of tobering. He needs to be. Yeah, right. Then, of course, my father, God bless him, I said, Daddy, if I go back there, because I told my daddy what they were doing, because there were a few teachers that really knocked me about very badly. And my daddy was, only my mother stopped them going up. There were a few times my dad was going up to have a word with these people. And you didn't mess with my dad. You did not mess with my dad. He was a rough, tough, really magnificent. And he supported his boys, you know, me and my brother, through anything and everything. Right or wrong, he supported us. That was a great thing about him.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant, man. That was it. My mother said to him, if he's not going back to school, that's how I ended up in the iron and brass foundry. This is your punishment for leaving school. Wow, sweet mother. And anyway, so after we'd done that, and I was gone from the iron and brass foundry, and I went to London. I was playing in a couple of wee show bandy things.
Yeah.
Forgive me for this cold. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
And so I went to London for 2.5 years, and we nearly got a recording contract, and we nearly this and we nearly that. It was one of those, you know. But it was great. London was, I mean, when was that? 71 to 73. And that was a great time to be in London, you know. And people always say, you know, oh, was it not difficult being Irish in London with all the troubles and all going on? And in fairness, and the whole time I was there, I never had one English person ever saying to me, see you. Never. Nobody. Everybody was wonderful and kind. And I love England. I really do. And the English
Me too.
Beautiful people. Beautiful people. So it was glorious, and I learned lots of stuff. And then I started looking at the mystical, magical stuff when I was there. Because obviously there was Watkins books and Atlantis bookshop. And you start buying all the occulty books, which got me into by the time I was, oh my goodness, that was the late 80s. Late 80s. We started going to 79. Hold on. My mind is so bad.
It's all right.
I joined the Rosicrucians. They did a postal course, and I joined it in 1980 and 1981. I went to the Rosicrucian Perneus in Belfast, and I met 4 other people who were me. They were just me, and they all the same things. And so we started going up hillsides and doing, oh God, and it was so wonderful to finally have somebody that was in the same place as me.
Mm.
and it was glorious. And of course, 1981, I knew a guy called John Rogers, and John Rogers was the personal assistant to Van Morrison. So I'm sitting in the house. I was living outside Ballymoney at that time, and phone rang. It's John Rogers, and he says, lad, are you busy? And I goes, no way. And he goes, I'm up here with Van Morrison. He's looking for somebody interesting to talk to. He said, I told him I knew a boy that was a Rosicrucian. And Van says, get him up here now. And that was it. I hopped in the car, drove all the way to Grimsport and met Van for the first time. And really, he was glorious. Really, people always ask about the Van thing, how was he? And I would have to say, when he was wonderful, he was the warmest, the kindest, the friendliest person I ever met. When he wasn't, he wasn't. And I made a quote somebody said about when we were doing, because I went on to work with Van in 1988, and people used to always say, "How was it?" And I always said it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, sometimes all in the one gig, which it was, which it really was. Long story short, we had done a whole load of mystical, magical stuff through the 80s, and always friends with Van, seeing him regularly. And it offered me, in 84 and 86, he'd offered me a job. And my intuition told me not just right yet, not just right. And 88, he came up to me I got a job with Maura O'Connell. She was the lead singer with the Dannon.
Yeah.
Great singer. So they offered me a job. And the minute I got the job with Maura O'Connell, we're in the rehearsal room in Belfast. And the guy comes in, one of the bosses, and he goes, Van Morrison on the phone for Clive Culbertson. And I thought, jeez. And of course, when I took the phone call and that was it, I said, yeah, he just offered me the job. So that was it. A lot of very nasty looks and one thing and another. But I was so excited. And then we did the rehearsals, and we did a few gigs, and then we did the rehearsals for the Avalon Sunset album, which was, and my goodness, to see a genius at work, and he is an absolute, complete and utter genius. And so he says, I've got a few things to do. I'll tell you one of the Van Grumpy stories. We were to go into the rehearsals on the Monday, and he wanted us in London till the weekend. And he said to me, you're going to have to come over on Sunday. He says, I have a few ideas I want to run past you, and I want you to. So I went over, and he's the house in Holland Park, standing with the bass guitar. I had to cancel a gig on Saturday night. I was working here, and I'm still doing a one-man show and things. So I went over, arrived at 3 o'clock, and rapped the door, nothing. Rapped the door for 10 minutes, and nothing. So in a bad temper, I turned around and I kicked his door, and then went to storm off, and the door opened. She goes, yeah, what do you want? I goes, you told me to come over. You told me you wanted me. And he just went, nah, doesn't suit. See you in the morning. Slammed the door on me. That was it. That was it. He was gone. But we went to the rehearsals the next day, and we had the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then I think we went into the studio for 3 days, either that week or the week after. And he was glorious, just watching him. And he would sit down and he would go, just with the acoustic guitar or something, And I said to Artie McGlynn, the great guitar player, I said, Artie, what's happening here? He goes, no, and I said, he's just putting the song together. That's him. I goes, right. And then out of nowhere, he goes, right, go. What do you mean? We haven't played it yet. We haven't. No, you heard me rehearsing it. So by the end of 3 days, he'd written almost everything that was on Avalon Sunset. And he was,
Wow.
When he did that, when will I ever learn to live in God? When will I ever learn? And Van has this thing about GC 1414 for all the big things round. And he, when will I 4 and 1, da 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 4 and 1, da 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 4 and 1. And I went, you know what would be really nice in there, Van? Do you see if you would go, when will I 4 and 1, da 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 4 6 minor, the E minor? And he went, all right, we'll use that. And it's on. He kept it. He kept the chord, which is absolutely brilliant. And I cried when the first time we actually did it. I actually cried in the rehearsal room. It was, and he was inspired. He was, oh my goodness. I just sort of looked at him during that rehearsal and I thought, that's why this guy's one of the biggest things in the world because of that. Because he does that to people at gigs. Um, so as I say, through that year we did gigs, some of them with the Chieftains because he was promoting the Irish Heartbeat album. And that was really when I was brought into play. And of course, working with the Chieftains, and you'll know, Marty, the
Oh,
Chieftains are
ah,
the
up there.
greatest, just, and I used to stand at the side of the stage every night to watch them. And of course, the best thing that came out of all that was I got very friendly with Derek Bell,
Ah,
the harpist piano player, and he a genius and the funniest man in the universe. He even when he doesn't mean to be funny, he was incredibly funny. And it was Derek Bell that said to me, you know, you're doing all this mystical, magical stuff. He says, did you ever think of doing Kriya yoga? Oh, no, really? So, on his advice, I joined the Self-Realization Fellowship,
eh,
which was Yogananda's yoga thing. And so, whenever we were on tour together, we would finish the gig, we would go back to the hotel, we would both go to our room, we would do our 40 minutes of meditation, and then go down to the bar for 2 Baileys each. The
I'm
whole
sure that
tour,
worked out well.
absolutely fabulous. And to get a friend like that on tour was fabulous. Now, the best bit of my story when we were doing Van and the Chieftains in Ireland, he was in awful form, absolutely horrific form,
Wow.
and I could never understand
And
how
what do
he
you mean by horrible form? What changed?
bad-tempered, ill-mannered,
Was it
shouting at people.
alcohol or was it just his
It
personality?
wasn't really drinking very much. It just seemed to be there were days he felt awful and everybody was going to pay for it. So he said to Derek Bell, he said, look, while we're in Ireland, um, get me somebody interesting to talk to. Went, all right, okay. Derek Bell knew everybody. So the very first person he got us to meet was Olivia Robertson, who was the head of the Fellowship of Isis. And she was this 70-year-old hippie. And we went down to meet her. And I thought she was fabulous. I loved her. She's totally nuts, but not really.
Yeah.
And just we sat for about 2 hours, and Van eventually just turned to Derek and he went, this is bullshit. Let's get out of here. I've had enough. So we left, and as we left, I said to Olivia, can I see you again? And she went, oh yeah, absolutely. And she said, there's my phone number. Ring me. And so we went away, and Van went away with nothing. And I went away with a phone number. And exactly.
That's my
So
man.
yeah. So I ended up we spoke on the phone and she invited me down to the Fellowship of Isis.
He wasn't Van the man that night, was it? It was Clive
That's
the
for
man.
sure. Oh my God, absolutely. So we did that and he said, that didn't work for me. Let me see somebody better. So they said, great, I've got somebody you can see tomorrow. So we said, who? And he said, this is a guy called Ben McBrady, and he is the last of the traditional druids in Ireland. So we went to Avoca House and we met the hostess, Pauline, whose surname I can't remember. She made dinner for us all, and we sat around the table, and I was in heaven. All these mystical, magical people talking about the things they were doing, the mystical, magical rituals they were doing, the visions they were having. Oh God, I'm in heaven! And of course, Van sitting poking at his food, going. So it ended up, we were there about an hour, and he turned to Derek Bell. He goes, these people have nothing. I've had enough. And he got up and he walked out the door. And as he walked out the door, Ben looked up and he goes, do you know, with all his money, that's the poorest man I ever met. And I thought, whoa,
Well,
and really, no truer word as regards that with Van. And So at the end of our night talking, I said to Ben McBrady, will you take me on as a pupil? And he had never taken anybody on as a pupil because he always maintained his order was it became called the Old Gaelic Order because it had been in Ireland, pre-Christian. But it started in Phoenicia in 1200 BC after some great cataclysm. And so they were there. His ancestor was a man called Luger MacLuger. Now, this man is so important and not enough people know about him. He's the guy who translated much of this Sanchez Moore, is that right? The Book of the Law. And he translated it from Irish into Latin and into English. An incredible man, absolutely incredible man. And the history is, and now this is the first time this has been talked about anywhere. Joseph of Arimathea brought Jesus to Cormac in County Kildare to the Druid University, same as he brought him to Glastonbury. And so he spent 3 weeks at the Druid University in Cormac. And before they left, Jesus initiated Luger and Luger initiated Christ into the Druid order, which is, I mean, whoa, really? So that's the lineage that Ben McBrady held all the way through. Luger MacLuger's something. Anyway, great somebody or other in the 4th century. Oh my goodness. Dovetack MacLuger. He was the guy who met St. Patrick. And he's actually written about. Now he's physically in the books. And his stepdaughter was, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, my memory's abominable.
No,
The woman that kept the perpetual flame, St. Bridget. And his stepdaughter was St. Bridget, who was in the Celtic Church. So whenever St. Patrick was here, him and Dovetack were big mates. And they exchanged initiations. So the Celtic Church thing that Dovetack held, he gave to Patrick. And the Roman Church thing that Patrick held, he gave it to Dovetack. So the Irish...
Now, Clive,
Oh.
just tell me for my audience,
Yeah,
you're a chief of the Druids of Ulster.
yeah.
What are Druids for people all over the world? What does that mean?
Main tenet is we live our lives as if there's only one. There's not us. There's only it. And we're part of it. All of it. And nature is alive. The sun is alive. When you do a lot of your druid ritual and you go up hillsides in the middle of the night, you may have experiences of the earth goddess as a living entity. And that entity can arrive as an anthropomorphic being. And yeah, we've seen her a lot of times, and she's particularly brilliant. A reverence for the land. Well, I mean, as Irish people, we all have reverence for the land. We're born with it, and here particularly, let me make a political point. The biggest thing about it is when I used to go and play in Derry, they used to call me Derry's token prod, because I was the only Protestant playing on the Catholic side of the city. Actually, at that stage, I wasn't in anything. I was raised as a Presbyterian, which I have to say was a wonderful system and was very, very kind to me. And probably some of the finest people that I know today at 71 years of age are the Presbyterians. They're lovely. There's a kindness about them. Why was I going there? I've forgotten completely and utterly. Why was I going there, Marty? I have no idea.
No, we're just talking about skip on a bit because I want to get as much as I want to go into your, which I drifted you off, but go into your musical career even after leaving and the other people you play with.
Yes.
And you alluded to your dad and you're singing, you talk about musical instruments.
Yes.
His voice is amazing, as I listened to her at the start. And I believe your songs are almost like poetry when you listen to the words of them. So where does that come from? And what inspires you to do what you're doing, and not just with what you're doing, in everything else. But let me hand it back to you, please. Take it from.
I well, my moment of success in my musical career, in 1978, I had the dubious pleasure of being signed to a contract with Mervyn Solomon,
Wow.
who had signed Van Morrison and David McWilliams and a few
Yeah.
other people to very dubious contracts. And unfortunately, that's who I got signed up with. He managed, I had a 1979, there was no band, there was no anything. And we said to Mervyn Solomon, can we get studio time to record some of my new songs? And Mervyn goes, I'll give you the studio time, but I'm not going to pay for any musicians. If you've got songs, go in and record them yourself. Now, I'm an average drummer. I'm a very average guitar player and an average keyboard player, but I'm a good bass player. I'm a really good bass player. So,
And obviously very persistent person. Anyway, carry on.
for sure. So we ended up, we went into the studio and we got the studio time to do it. And I recorded a couple of songs, one called Time to Kill and one called Busy Signal, which of course were punk hits. And a company called Logo in London signed us up for those singles. And they got it released in Japan. And that single was a top 10 hit in Japan. But of course, nobody told me and nobody paid me, which is how the business works for most people. And then we got a band, put a band together called the band was originally called No Sweat. And then Pete Townshend's record company threatened to sue us because they owned a band called No Sweat. So we just changed it to The Sweat, which is, people used to say, we'll go and see The Sweat. So I thought, we'll just go with that. But every band becomes its name. And No Sweat was a dawdle. Everything fell in place. Everything was right. All the gigs were. That was it. And oh, can I tell you a very funny story, by the way? Just
Yeah,
to come into my
please.
head. When we were playing with the No Sweat thing, we got booked in Straw Letter Dallin, Orange Hall, in New Year's Eve of 1978. Now, why in the name of God they ever booked a punk band to play in there? So it's such a good story. So it just came into my head. And we arrived in, and you realize when you're looking around the hall, this is a farmer's dance. It's not kids that are coming to bop. It's not. So the guy came up at the start and he goes, great to see you. Yeah, there's your money. And he says, hope it goes well for you. So we start playing and the place is packed to the doors. And of course they start leaving. They start leaving. And we're sitting about 11:15. And the man comes up and there's almost nobody left in the hall. And the wee man comes up with his keys and he says, you were absolutely SH1T. And he says, lock up when you go. And he walked out and he left us in the hall. There was nobody there. And we had to get the gear out. We left. We were home for 11:30 or something. You were. And that was it. And he threw the keys up and we locked it, put the keys through. So No Sweat became The Sweat. And of course, The Sweat was The Sweat. It was all hard and it was all difficult. And everything that should have been easy wasn't. And it really was. And that band became its name. Dave D from Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch, if you remember them in the 60s. Big 60s band. And Dave D came over to hear us. He had heard the tape and he came over and he just stood with the checkbook and he goes, I want it. I'll buy it now. And of course we're all standing. This is Dave D.
Yeah.
I've got this guy's records. So we were all a bit enamored. And which is really a real pity because there were other labels that were interested in us at the time that we should have gone with. Island, Virgin, Capital in America. But Dave D was the first guy to arrive with a checkbook and we took the check, which is a big mistake. Dave D was, up to that time, the most successful A&R man of all time. He'd signed Boney M and a whole load of things to Warner's. So he'd made billions for the record company. So the guy from Areola Records in Germany said, Dave, give you a blank check, go start your own label. And of course, Dave went, oh, yeah, great, let's do that. So he started the label. We were one of 4 or 5 bands that he signed. And the problem with this great idea was when Dave was in Warner Brothers and there was a record came out, he lifted the phone to somebody in promotions and went, can you make sure that that gets on the radio? Can you make sure that they get this, that, and the other? So all of a sudden now he's sitting in his own record label in his own office with nobody on the end of the phone. And he's sitting going, now what? So the guys in Areola in UK hated him. They just hated him with a vengeance. And Dave could never understand why his records weren't selling. So when our single came out, he said, do me a favor, take this priority slip round to Areola, ask for this guy. I can't remember what his name was. I wish I did, I would name him. And he said, go around, ask for this guy, give him the priority slip. This has to be their priority this week. So that was it. Took it round. I saw the guy. It was very pleasant. Took the thing. Yeah, we'll get on that. So 2, 3 weeks later, Dave's getting phone calls. We can't get this record anywhere. So Dave goes, Clive, did you take that round? I said, yeah, I did. He said, right, come with me. So we went over to Areola's offices in London, and Dave asked for the guy that I'd seen 3 weeks earlier. And Dave said, look, what happened to my priority slip? Your man just stood there and he went, what priority slip, Dave? And Dave turned to me and said, is this the guy you gave the priority slip to? And I went, yep. The guy goes, don't know this guy. I've never seen him before in my life. I got no priority slip. So Areola screwed him in the UK. They hated him because they thought somebody in Areola should have got the money to start a record label rather than the guy from Warner's. So that's where we were. We're now in this record company that can't get stuff out to the shops. I mean, we had 3 weeks in June 1980. We were the most played record in the UK. And nobody could buy it. You couldn't get it in the shops. Wholesalers couldn't buy it. Nothing. Yeah. And the album came out, same thing. Couldn't get it, couldn't buy it. And we ended up, when we went on tour, we did 3 weeks in the summer of 1980, and we took the album with us. We sold over 1,000 albums at the gigs. People coming up saying, can't buy your record in the shops. Have you got any? Oh, you've got a box here, will you? We nearly 2,000, and we sold over 1,000 on that 3-week tour. So people wanted the bloody album, and it was a great album, and it's still a great album. I still stand over it. I'm still so proud of it, and it should have been. A lot of the DJs in the South now, there's a real friend of mine, Carl Sigdinas. He's a big DJ down there, and he's the guy that reviewed the No Sweat single, the Sweat single, and the album 40 years ago. And Carl is actually playing everything that I have. And every couple of weeks, he plays a track from the Sweat album or from some of my solo stuff. And he does that all the time. And God, why am I going with that? Everybody says, even Carl to this day says, Why'd You Have to Lie was probably the greatest Irish single ever. It was certainly one of them.
If I may just interrupt you, you might have a cold, but it just doesn't stop you talking, does it? Clive, can I say that, just recently we've had a few chats and taken us a while to get up to this day, but why did you have to lie? As I said earlier, but that is an absolute blinder. I love dancing. I've had nightclubs. I've had people in my night. I've had Aslan play in my nightclub, in my hotel. I've had all kinds of people play, and I've gone to a lot of bands, owning my own clubs. Lots of great bands, great people. I love that song. We heard it at the start of the show, and I might just stick it in as well with your new one, which I've listened to. Brilliant. But it is a real, and what I laughed was John Buckley when he put it together, but I love that it was Asian, as in, I mean, in Tokyo, not again.
Yes.
The fact that they loved it and bugging away, and it's an amazing song, and I hope it gets re-released. In other words,
we've actually done a re-record. Long story short, Mervyn Solomon's record company was bought over by somebody else who I won't even name, and they held
Yeah.
my songs for 40 years, never paid me any royalties. And then when he closed down, he sold my stuff on to Cherry Red Records in London, one of Sony's subsidiaries. And Shay Hennessy in Dublin, who owns Crash Records, I've known Shay since we worked in Solomon's together. I worked in their studio for a while, and Shay and I have known each other since then. So I was talking to Shay Hennessy,
Yeah.
and Shay
Yeah.
said, would you like me to go and have a word with Cherry Red to see if we can get any of your stuff back? And he went and had a go at them, and he said, keep all your royalty statements, don't cash anything. Tell them you're not happy with the situation and you won't cash anything till we get this sorted out. So after 3 years, I haven't cashed anything. And Shay said, keep sending me down the royalty statement so I know what they're paying you for. So he came back to me after 3 years and he said, I think I've got an angle. And I said, really? What would that be? Leave it with me. And he went over to them on the Wednesday and he went into the guy because they do similar things. They buy old catalog from other companies and repackage and resell. So he knew them well. He'd done business with them. So he'd been over a few times. So Shay was in and he said, look, what I need you to talk to me about Clive stuff. And the guy said, look, we've talked about Clive stuff. You're not getting it back. And Shay said, well, you do realize, he said, in the 3 years that you've had his catalogue, you haven't paid him a penny of writers' royalties. And the guy said, what do you mean we haven't paid him? We always pay. The guy goes, yeah, you've paid him like the MCPS for plays, but he's got no publishing. And Shay pulled out my 3 royalty statements. And the guy went, oh. He says, you know, you're absolutely right. He said, I didn't realize we weren't paying him for. And so Shay says, can I get his songs back? Keep the recordings. Keep the recordings from the 80s, but can we get the rights to his publishing? And it turned out, after those guys in Belfast holding my songs for 40 years, they had no paperwork for anything except 6 songs. I could have walked away at any time. They actually had no paperwork for anything. So Cherry Red said, look, the punk things that he did in Japan and a couple of other punk songs, he says, we're going to keep those because we've got paperwork for them, but you can have the other 40 songs back, which was a real win for me.
Big time.
the Please Don't Say You Love Me, which you're going to play later, that was the opening song for the Sweat for the 2 years we were happening. That was our opening live song for the set.
I've listened to it before we came on. That is, and the audience are going to be excited listening to this, and we'll be shown the new video that's going to also and follow up. But
brilliant.
Please carry on. You're fascinating. I'm intrigued with your story.
Yeah. So now that they're back, Shay said to me, look, what you need to do is you need to re-record the back catalogue. He said, because I can be starting to put it in for sync for movies, for Netflix, for Amazon, for whatever. He said, but I need new versions. He said, because he said, I'm sticking your old stuff in. And he said, but we don't own it. He said, we own the publishing, but we don't own. So he said, even if I put it in for a movie, he said, we're not going to make any money off that other than publishing. So he said, if you redo them, because when he sends, people are saying these are great songs. It's a pity they're so dated. They're so 80s, which is grand for some things. And so we're now in the middle of re-recording. Well, a bundle of it anyway. We'll see how we are. We've actually re-recorded the Why'd You Have to Lie as well. Everything's done except for the guitar solo. The guitar solo was done by Trevor Forbes, who was our guitar player, and absolutely an old jazz guitar player playing rock. And that's why it was interesting. If he'd have been another rock guitar player, it would have just been another rock solo. So the solo in the Why'd You Have to Lie was, people went, what was that? And everybody still to this day, people are still saying to me, God, what's he doing in that guitar solo? So I wanted for the re-recording. The whole thing is done. It's finished. Everything's ready. We've tried with 6 different guitar players to copy Trevor's guitar solo. We can't get anybody to copy it. We can get people who are in the ballpark, but can't copy it.
And Clive, can I just get an exclusive here?
Yeah.
With you is, when is your book, your memoirs coming out?
I'm about 130, 140 pages into it. And the book was an interesting thing to do, you know, 'cause you got to sit, you got to do it honestly. And all of a sudden, you got to look back, and I look back and you go, wow, I was a wee so and so there. What did I really do that? Oh, yeah, you did do that. And yeah, you really did say that. And so it was cathartic in many ways. I have a dear friend of mine, Derek Sherlow, who's been my friend since my very first band.
Yeah,
And let me tell you a Derek Sherlow story because I love him. When
yeah,
I was
yeah. Please.
when I was 12 back in Coleraine, Derek lived up just up the street from me, and he had a wee band called the Rogues. I just don't want to mention him. I adore the man, and Derek's band were fabulous, and I hadn't really been to see a band. And I said to him one day, I said, "Would you mind? Could I come into your rehearsal?" Oh yeah, come on. So we went in, and like I'm in love, like this music thing. So one day after the band had left, this is what changed my writing. Derek said to me, "I know you're good with chords. He said, can you tell me what these chords are?" And he put on By the Time I Get to Phoenix, the Jimmy Webb song by Glenn Campbell, a multi-million selling. I cried. I thought, what is that? I've never heard chords used like that. What was? And Derek said to me, "Do you think you could work out those chords?" And I said, "Give me the album." So I brought it down and I pulled my record player over beside my piano and I went, "By the time I get what's that? By the time I get, oh, it's an A over B. Oh my God." And although I didn't know what the chords were called, I knew what it was. With a three chord over a three root over a one chord. What? Because nobody I knew played chords like that. I mean, Jimmy
Yeah.
Webb for me is still my favorite songwriter. There's so many things out of his songs that I borrowed, chord progressions, chord shapes in my own
Yeah.
songs. And that was it. So I went up to Derek the next day and I said, "I've got all these for you." And I was able to show him what all the things were for that. And that's how Derek and I became really good friends. And it was him got me into my first show band and everything. And but that was he was responsible. I was with him 2 weeks ago, and it turns out that he is the archivist. He's got photographs from 69, 70, 75. He's got them all, and he knows who played in what band. So I was able to go out and spend another afternoon with him, just sitting down, who played here and who left that and who went to. And he's a great repository of that
And what's
knowledge. Yeah.
Derek doing now at the moment?
Derek is now retired.
Yeah,
Derek sold carpets throughout his lifetime, although he was a keyboard player in bands
yeah.
for most of his working life. And he's wonderful. And the fact that he kept all this stuff, because my thing was I never really kept all the photographs and stuff because I never thought I would run out of now.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? I
yeah,
just
yeah,
why would I want that? Because it's
yeah.
always going to be great, and I'm always going to be playing music, and so I never kept a lot of stuff. Never kept a lot. It was a pity. I've got a few pictures from the 70s. Funny, I was looking through them the other day. With me with my hair. I was able to sit in my hair at one stage in the 70s. I was
Well,
able to,
we're going to be showing those photographs at the end of
oh
the
God,
show, okay? Which will
right.
give people a nice laugh with a few more. Now, Clive, we're running up with time, hard to believe, because I could talk to you. I knew I couldn't fit your whole show in, but I'd like you're an amazing man and what you've done. And I honestly, your new single, which you can play, and the first one, I've listened to the one, which is my new favorite.
Ah,
The first one is why did you lie to me? What did you lie to me? That is just, and I hope the people are listening to this and then your new song. But I'd like to ask you for people who've been on. We've had all kinds of people on the show and musicians like Daniel O'Donnell and people like that. Is
yeah.
what advice would you give to musicians that I know what you're going to, like your passion. We've heard what you've said, but what's yours? And then if I can double whammy in before we clear up, what's next for you? What's on your
Yeah. For anybody that wanted to go into the music business, become a plumber or a joiner or a bricklayer or anything. There is no music industry anymore. It's like unless you're 16, and some guy's going to use you for 2 or 3 years and then dump you. There isn't any industry, right? The scariest thing about it for me about the industry, the way it is now, the Stones are going out for their last tour. McCartney's going out for his last tour. Whitesnake are going out for their last tour. Deep Purple are going out. It's over. All that stuff that's been the music of the last 50 years, it's all coming to an end. And was it who was it sang the song? I can't. Oh my goodness, who's going to fill their shoes? There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. I go out when I'm out in the car if I'm going for a drive somewhere. I always take about half an hour to listen to BBC Radio One. Don't you, don't you, don't you, don't you, don't you, don't you, don't you. Next song. Don't you, don't you, don't you, don't you. Same drum sound, same loop, same this, same chorus. Oh,
Yeah.
and you just think, my kids, my daughter, this is a couple of years ago, I went into the front room and she was playing this guy. Was doing that laid back. I don't know what they're called. It used to be soul when I was younger. Those lovely love songs, those lovely black love songs. And she was playing this stuff in the computer, and I said, "Who's that?" I can't remember what his name was. And I said, "You got to copy that for me." And I have a rule: if I get a copy of anything and if I listen to it more than once, I buy it, and I always do. I have thousands of albums. And she said, "Yeah, I'll get." So a couple of weeks later, 3 weeks later, I was in the room again. I said, "What about that album?" Be like, "Ah, Daddy, don't be silly. Nobody listens to that guy anymore." 3 weeks later. And that's how it is now. I mean, I still, when I go out in the car, and this is again old man talking, I'm 71 now. I have a Beach Boys favorites. Because for me, they are it. I love harmonies, that's my thing. And I have a Beatles favorites.
Yeah.
And I have those in the car. I don't drive anywhere without those in my car. And while I listen to other stuff, there's other nice stuff out there. There was a really great American band called Gloriana, and they were big for 4 or 5 years in the noughties, and they're gone. They're fabulous. I listen to them. You need me to change tack here, do you?
I love that. I was looking to see, because I can't remember the name now, like you, because I'm so intrigued in your stories. I've got he'll give out to me now the Beatles show band in Ireland. He's coming on the show. He started
great.
in 1964. Oh God, he's gonna. I hope I'll tell him, don't listen to this when you forget names. You're dealing with so many people.
Oh, that is the thing. I open up the paper here at the weekend to see what's on in London. Tribute to the Beatles, tribute to this, tribute to ABBA, tribute to. I mean, and you're going, these guys are packing the halls that the Beatles and the Stones that were packing 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Correct.
And it's, oh my God. And some of them are great. Like some of them I know. I've seen them online. Haven't seen any of them live. But there's the bootleg Beatles. They're breathtaking. They're absolutely breathtaking. And were the Beatles that good? I'm not sure. But
That's, you know what? That's the thing. They can do something. I was down in Mornington, which is down on the peninsula down here, Clive, and went to see the Neil Diamond cover band.
Brill.
Well, do you know what? They were like, I mean, I've listened to music. I love music. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
Neil Diamond and that could have been there and walked out.
Yes.
And then come in and they wouldn't have known the difference.
I know, absolutely. But, they have to get it right. If that's their career, they got to be good. They got to be good. Neil Diamond will get away with singing the odd dodgy note here and there. But these guys won't. These guys won't.
No.
I've seen there's a couple of the ABBA tributes over here that are wonderful. Absolutely, shockingly wonderful. And why isn't there something new? Why isn't there a Paul McCartney? Why isn't there a Mick Jagger, Keith? Why? What's happening? And I think there won't be a music. You can't buy anything anymore. You go out and buy a car now. It doesn't even come with a hi-fi anymore.
No.
What? You buy a wee memory stick and put it in, but they only play MP3s. which means all the top end's wrong, all the bottom end's wrong, and what? And I went to buy a new car up the road. I was up, and I said to the guy, "This is really." Oh, but he says, "Sure." He says, "You'll be able to put your wee pen drive in." I said, "But it sounds awful." I said, "Who's going to know?" I said, "Me. I'm going to know it."
I'm the one listening to it. I would know. Now,
Aye.
Clive, look, we're just up on time.
Yep.
I want to say it's been an absolute pleasure. I could have gone on. I knew I couldn't fit in half your
Brilliant.
story.
I'm sorry I bounced around a wee bit, but that's how
No. Hey, you're talking to me. I bounced around all that, but it's all in there. But it's an absolute pleasure, and I'm looking forward now. My listeners, they're going to be listening now. Please don't say you love me. So, Clive, tell me you love me.
Marty, I love you.
Clive, you're absolutely adorable. Thank you so much for coming on.
Good job, Marty. Thank you for having me, Marty. A real pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you to our listeners here in Australia, New Zealand, and all over the world. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Clive.
Take care, Marty. God bless.
A
Bye.
pleasure. A pleasure.
My world was turning bad, and I needed somebody there. You walked into my life, and now I see you start to care. But don't get hooked on me, 'cause what we have will have to end. I don't want love, I just want you for my friend.